Today, we will be discussing the multitude of ways that you can track participation within Cvent. Before we look at these different options, I just want to preface this with tracking attendance is really critical to being able to identify your really engaged constituents. And so this pertain to a particular event, or you can look at this a bit more holistically, but a single event, let's look at just like asking for follow-up feedback once the event has occurred. In that survey, it might just be saying, how was the food? How was the session? Things like that. But you just send it to individuals who didn't even attend. So it's not relevant to them. So not only did you send a message that didn't pertain to them, you missed an opportunity that you could have actually targeted a message to those who didn't attend to ask them valuable information in hopes of getting them in the door next time. Why didn't you attend? What is there something about the location, the format? Was it the timing? Did something just come up unexpectedly? But in asking those questions, you might be able to identify something that you as the event planner can change to get higher attendance in the future. You want to look a bit more across multiple events. Once you start looking at this information, it can be really insightful knowing who is coming to multiple events, whereas those individuals who might be registering for every single event they ever see and never walking through the door, you would definitely want to engage with them differently moving forward. Today, we only see about 20% of our events having participation tracked, which definitely leaves us with a lot of room for opportunity. So it might take a little bit of one, learning initially, and two, some setup on the event planner side. After that, the technology really helps automate and make that process much easier, especially on that day of event. There's 4 main methods for tracking participation available within Cvent. The first and my favorite is their mobile app, which is free for those licensed users. You can also log into your account and do this via desktop, track participation. There's a third option being registrant checklist alert. That terminology is very Cvent specific, but essentially you as the event planner within Cvent can set this up so somebody gets an email and gets a list of registrants and is able to check them off or mark that participation. A great way to get a little assist. There's also a way to import a file. So something you would have to export, track, and go ahead and re-import. But we'll go ahead and dig into these 4 methods, look at pros and cons, and really it comes down to often your specific use cases and how many people you might have helping in your event, or if you're kind of doing it all on your own. We'll call out these additional resources for the 4 methods of tracking participation that are available. Depending on which ones speak to you today, you can always dive in a bit further, and we will definitely go ahead and do so in a moment, specifically looking at the Cvent On Arrival app. So there's a lot more detail on the Cvent Check-in app here, including a recording from a training we hosted previously. But from a high level, it's available on Android or on Google devices. You can just go ahead and search for On Arrival, and you'll use the same login information that you use to get into your account. So when I say it's really good to use for day of events, I try to identify who's going to be assisting me with check-in before, maybe 3 people or something, ask them to download this On Arrival app. And then when they get to my event, I'll have them hand their device over to me, and I can go ahead and log in on all of those different devices at the same time. Nice, it'll let you log into multiple devices at a single point in time. It's not going to kick you off of those other devices. So hand them back to those individuals, and they'll be able to, one, dig into this particular event or any event that you have access to. And in that, we'll see a real-time list of everyone who's registered for this particular event. There's a search function in there if they need to easily search for somebody or jump to Z or something like that. it's really intuitive. So just give them a couple minutes before the event to play around on it. And also be able to track any walk-ins and just input that first name, last name, email. So you have a record of that as well. Again, this recording will dive deeper into all of the nuances, but I know a lot of folks are hesitant to move to this and still want to rely on printing out registrations. And one of those concerns being, what if the Wi-Fi is down? So there are things in place to work around that and ease any concerns you might have. For the desktop version, you will log in exactly as you typically do to create your events on your computer. And then once you've opened up your event, you can navigate to the attendee list and actually mark participation from there. So I will actually hop into an event that I have in Cvent here. And just as I mentioned, on the left-hand side, expanding the attendee section, then clicking on attendee list to open it. And this is where you would be able to look at this list. You could even search for an individual if you wanted and go ahead and mark them by hitting the drop down next to their name and then say mark as event participant. In doing so, you'll see that in this column on the far right, event participant is now yes. So we can see a yes for these top two. I just changed one of them, and we have some other no's down here. There is also the actions drop down that you can then click mark participation. It opens a very similar interface, but at that point, you are also able to see that same participation column. These folks are already marked, these are not, but you could click multiple of these individuals and say update participation. And that would get multiple folks at one point in time. Obviously, with this desktop version, you would need to log in yourself, knowing those credentials. So you could hand over that device to someone else at that point if they were tracking it. But unlike the app, you can't log into multiple desktops at any point in time. This would need to be on a single device. Our third option is a registrant checklist alert, where a Cvent user can set up it so anyone is emailed a list of those registrants. And they can mark who attended, even add first name, last name, email for any walk-ins. So that's available within your event after expanding the email tab and underneath clicking on registrant checklist alerts. So within my event, again, under email, I've already clicked on registrant checklist alerts, and I don't have any set up right now, but we'll go ahead and click this blue create alert button. And this way we can look at some of the settings that are available here. First, you need to associate it with something. And so I'll just hit this ellipses next to it. And I only have one option. And that's because essentially my overarching event. If you had sessions set up, you'd be able to set up a registrant checklist alert, a list of people who have registered for a particular session, but I don't have that. And you want to send the alert once or twice. I'm just going to do it once, but you could give 2 dates for this. And when do you want it to go? So the day of the event is a great time for that. And you can go ahead and identify what time you want it to go out. So say 8 a.m., knowing that my event is at 8:30. You can identify who this should go to, which could be any email you want. As we continue to scroll under basic settings, I always encourage, even better than just viewing registrants, would giving those people the opportunity to mark participation, input those walk-ups. You could password protect it, but I don't see the need to do so, and I'll hit save on that. The nice thing about setting up these registrant checklist alerts is that if this event were to be cloned, you could also clone these alerts, and that can really bring efficiency across many events. Assuming you're sending this to someone else, that's one less thing that you need to think about the day of the event. They can just be tasked with that. It's really nice. Make things easy and really start collecting great data. I've been using this a lot on my virtual events. I can't sign into a device right there for them. So this gets an email directly to somebody's inbox. The recipient can click here and they will be taken to a list of everyone who's registered for that event or that session, however you configure that registrant checklist alert. I will also highlight that maybe you have this set up to go out the day of the event, but that's not weeks away. And this person ran up to like, oh, I just want to see it today. You could manually go ahead and send it. I believe we reviewed all of the pros of this registrant checklist alert, but I do want to mention some of the negatives, more so just something to be aware of, that the list of registrants is captured at a moment in time from when the email was sent out. So if the email was sent out at 11 in the morning and then 20 people registered and you go click here on that link and look at the list of registrants, those recently registered folks are not going to be on the list. So just keep that in mind. And that's why I like to send it out the day of the event, 30 minutes before, at the same time as the event. I know nobody will be added to the registration at that point in time, so therefore my list will be up to date. Another thing to keep in mind that you will just, or whoever gets that email will be seeing a list of first name, last name, email. If you asked a bunch of additional registration questions, you are not going to see that listed out. That's hindered some people from using this before. Final option of importing a file will require a list of registrants to be exported from Cvent, something a licensed Cvent user will need to do. Somebody will need to use that Excel file to track participation. So a column will be added there and say yes and no. And then somebody with a Cvent license will need to import that back into Cvent via their particular event. So a little bit of back and forth. And I do want to highlight within your event, you would go ahead and get that report within the report section, almost towards the end of the navigation, and then click on reports underneath that. And from here, there's actually a registrant checklist specifically for marking participation. So that's something you might want to run and export. That's what would be used to track participation and later imported. When I say later imported, that would actually occur on the same attendees and attendee list section that we were looking at earlier. This is where we were marking participation individually or unmarking participation in that case. But there's also under this actions button in the top, the import participants. So that is where that file would be uploaded, but I will not dig too much further into that one. There is a little note on here about portals. So any of those reports that are created, whether it's one for this purpose or a different one like financials or how people are opening emails, you have the option to have those published to the portal. We can create portal users for free. So we do have a wiki out there on that topic as well. It's something your eComm specialist would need to assist with, but we've seen a lot of interest in it since rolling it out about 6 months ago. And as always, as you start dabbling in these features, Cvent Help and Support is a great option. We keep things pretty high level, and so it can be very comforting having an expert there to really walk you through these items step by step, and it just depends on your own learning style. But big shout out to them. I don't know what we would do without them. So within your account, you do have that circle icon up in the top right corner, the help and community, and underneath the help and support. It will open up in a new tab, but you have the option to either open a case with them. So non-urgent things, it'll be addressed within 24 hours. You can chat with them. So IMing back and forth. It's what I tend to gravitate towards, but they will also call you. Last time I did this, my phone was ringing. I felt like immediately after I hit submit on requesting a call. So those are great urgent options.